This is George. He's a Christian and he wants to pray, but every time he tries, his mind starts racing. He remembers that assignment due tonight, that awkward conversation from earlier, and to top it all off, he can't shake the feeling that maybe he's doing it all wrong and doesn't know how to pray. Why is prayer so hard? If God wants us to come to him, then why does it often feel impossible? Well, there are three things George must consider. The first of which lies in Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. What does this mean? Well, when our problems get too big to face on our own, we can't just run from them or act like they don't exist. We need to look at them, look at God, and trust that He's got this. And George is stuck because he keeps looking at his bad finances, but never looks at the provider. He kept looking at his worries, but never at his comforter. But sometimes we're not just anxious about our problems, we're bitter. Why didn't God stop this from happening? Why hasn't he fixed it yet? We start believing that God is distant, or worse, that he doesn't even care. And just like that, we close off our hearts. We stop seeking God, not because we don't believe in him, because we don't want to talk to him. The truth? God is not distant. He's with us, and we need to bring our pain to him, not hold it against him. I know it's uncomfortable to do, but we need to turn to God. We need to trust in his perfect goodness and perfect faithfulness. We need to understand that when the creator of the universe promises something, he really means it. With this new mindset, George can finally glorify God. He can finally let God carry his burdens, and he can finally receive the peace that surpasses all understanding. But even after that, he's left with one glaring problem. He can't get himself to actually start praying. And there are two reasons why this might be the case. The first thing that George needs to look at is his shame. If he's being honest, he hasn't been following God much recently. He's backslid, became caught up in sin, and now he feels unworthy. And this shame makes him do what Adam and Eve did after sinning in Genesis. They hid from God. Realizing how big God is, George is now afraid to approach God. But what he must understand is that our ability to approach God isn't up to us. It's up to him. If you have shame that stops you from praying, read this aloud with me. God made him who knew no sin be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. His grace covers a multitude of sins and is infinitely stronger than our shame. George also needs to really take a closer look at his heart. Does he truly desire God above everything else? Or is there something else that's taking his rightful place? You see, George was an athlete his whole life, and he realized that what was once a hobby slowly started to turn into an idol. Because of this, whenever he's free, he thinks, well, I could pray right now, or I can look at my replays. God wants me to be the best player I can be, right? Whether or not that's true, George needs to understand that he made a God out of his passion. If you're in a situation like George, tell yourself that you need to give God your first fruits. If time with God is just an afterthought, it'll be rare that you ever even pray at all. Tell God that your motives haven't been straight recently. Not with shame, but in humility. This is how you approach prayer. Realizing your need and trusting in God, realizing that by his grace, we're able to pray before him, and remembering that the Lord is our God and nothing else. If you like this video and want to go more in depth, be sure to check out my free application worksheet for it over on Patreon. And this ministry is entirely crowdfunded, so while you're there, consider becoming a member. It's a great way to support the channel, and you get some pretty nice perks. Thank you.